Hello YouTubers, Alaska Prepper here. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to try to make this short. We're going to talk more about this later on this afternoon during our live stream. I think this is very important, and this is something that's coming down the line. It's something that is inevitable. But if we know about this now, we can prepare for it. Right? There's a lot of Russian people that wish they would have known about this a long time ago. And we will talk about that later on this afternoon. But first, I want to go through this real short article with you all so that you can see where it is that we are headed. And here is why U.S. threats against Russian gold reserves mean a monetary reset is imminent. Now, I don't normally watch the FOMC meetings, with Jerome Powell spewing out his lies so that the American public can get hoodwinked even more than what they already have been. However, I did see a couple of short clips, and there was one clip in there, ladies and gentlemen. It actually mentions it on this article. What gives the United States its power are two things. Number one is that it has control of the world reserve currency. That's one thing. The second thing is that it has a pretty strong military. All right, ladies and gentlemen, as far as technology, as far as equipment, all that kind of stuff, right? But Jerome Powell actually said, paraphrasing here, that yes, the world can exist with two reserve currencies. Ladies and gentlemen, that is setting us up for failure. He's pretty much said we've lost the war, in my opinion. When he stands up in front of the American people, and most people probably don't even understand what those few short words mean. That yes, the United States can have, or the world can have, an additional reserve currency instead of just a Federal Reserve note. And it says here, this article may contain statements that reflect the opinion of the author. And that's fine, right, ladies and gentlemen, because we learn from everything. We take the good and we leave the bad, right? That's what I always say. It's possible to have more than one reserve currency, all right? And that is what Mr. Jerome Powell said. These are the recent words of Jerome Powell, the chairman of the Federal Reserve. It's a stunning admission from one person who has the most control over the US dollar, the current world reserve currency. It would be as ridiculous as Mike Tyson saying that it's possible to have more than one heavyweight champion. That is how dire that statement is, ladies and gentlemen, and I don't think that most people caught that. In other words, the jig is up. Not even the chairman of the Federal Reserve can go along with the farce of maintaining the dollar's supremacy anymore, and neither should you. And you should definitely join in on today's live stream, ladies and gentlemen, because this is what we're going to talk about, and we're going to talk about how it is very plausible and probable that this happens, especially with what's going on with Ukraine and Russia and the rest of the world. Powell's comments occur in the context of what could prove to be one of the most short-sighted and self-destructive acts in history, the U.S. government's economic war against China. In the wake of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, the U.S. government has launched its most aggressive sanctions campaign ever. And we have to wonder why, ladies and gentlemen. Why is it the most aggressive sanctions campaign ever? Ask yourself. Do a little bit of research on Ukraine and Russia, and not just going back a year or two, but going back decades. He says that this is financial nuclear war and the largest sanctions event in history. He went on to say that Russia went from being part of the global economy to the single largest target of global sanctions and a financial pariah in less than 2 weeks. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I have a feeling that that's going to turn around in short order. And again, we'll talk about that later on. I'm trying not to make this video very long. And I'm not trying to tease you or anything like that and make you want to come on to the live stream. But that's what we're going to be covering today during the live stream, because there is quite a bit to cover. He goes on to say, here is a brief rundown of what has happened. The US and European governments froze the US dollar and euro reserves of Russia. The accumulated savings of the nation was worth around $300 billion. So they pretty much took $300 billion worth of Russian monetary assets and said, we're taking it. That's why, ladies and gentlemen, just like in this case where governments were able to take money from a bank account of another government, that is the same thing they can do to us. I know that's just a little segue, but that's just the same thing that they can do to us. So if you think your money is yours because it's in the bank under an account that has your name on it, ask Russia if that money was ever really theirs. That is why I've always stated that money that is in the bank is really not your asset. Russia just found out that that money in the bank is a liability. Why is that? Because I'm pretty sure right now that them missing that $300 billion, I'm pretty sure that they would have rather had spent that money on something real, on buying metals, on buying stuff that their country needs, equipment and all that stuff before all this happened, instead of leaving it in the bank. It is a liability when it is in the bank. Russia banks have been kicked out of the SWIFT system, the system to send international wire transfers. For those of you that don't know what the SWIFT system is, just consider it like a credit card, all right? But it's a national credit card. So for example, let's say that India buys $100 million worth of wheat from Russia, and then India sends Russia the funds via the SWIFT system. So it's kind of like their credit card, all right? It's just a ledger, an in and out ledger is what it is. A stampede of Western companies have left Russia and are banning average Russian citizens from using their platforms. And this is something else we're going to talk about later on today, but I'll give you a little preview on this. So in my opinion, all of these Western countries that are banning them, and let's go ahead and use McDonald's because that's what I've heard about the most. McDonald's has officially left Russia. Ladies and gentlemen, did they take the buildings with them? So McDonald's Corporation, I don't know how they do it. I don't know if they lease the buildings. I don't know what they do with the equipment or anything like that. But the McDonald's Corporation or McDonald's Company, whatever it is, did they actually take their buildings away from Russia? Did they take the French fry deep fat fryers? Did they take the hamburger grills? Did they take the tiles off the floor when they left Russia? No, they took their business away from Russia. Everything that is still needed in order to run that business is still there. So who really is the one that's losing here? Because Russia can still put people to work in there, right? They can still open up that building and start making hamburgers and Big Macs or whatever it is. Again, maybe a little bit of a different recipe, but the building, the actual asset is still there. So how much is that really going to hurt Russia? Popular cryptocurrency exchange Coinbase blocked over 25,000 accounts linked to Russia. Visa, MasterCard, and American Express have cut off Russia from their networks. Even formerly neutral Switzerland joined the orgy of sanctions. These are just a few examples of how Russia is being cut off from the US-dominated global financial system. And that's one thing that we're going to talk about again. Let me say it again. Ladies and gentlemen, when you take a look at all of these other countries around the world, when they see what is going on, when they see how much power the US has over another country, saying, hey, if you don't do what I want you to do, then I'm going to go ahead and take away your allowance. How many of those countries are going to start going like, you know what? Maybe we should have a little bit of this on the side. Maybe we should, start incorporating into other systems just in case. Because ladies and gentlemen, there is only so much that other countries will take. Of course, all this comes as no surprise to the Russians. They have prepared for this exact outcome for many years together with China. The Chinese Communist Party understands that if the US can take down Putin, they will be next. My point exactly. That's why the Chinese are unlikely to abandon their strategic partnership with Russia. So instead of capitulating to US pressure, Russia immediately implemented alternatives to bypass the US dollar and US controlled financial institutions. Russia and China have alternatives to SWIFT to facilitate international financial transactions. After US credit card companies blacklisted anything to do with China from their system, Russian banks seamlessly switched much of their payment processing to China's Union Pay, which is like a credit card system that China uses in their country. Union Pay is China's alternative global payment processing network. And there you go. It works just like Visa, MasterCard, or American Express, except it doesn't depend on the US government's good graces. It can operate independently of the US financial system. China UnionPay is growing rapidly worldwide. Merchants and ATMs in over 140 countries accept it. It's now one of the largest payment processors in the world. Further, China, India, Iran, and Turkey, among other countries, announced or already are doing business with Russia in their local currencies instead of the US dollar. The US dollar is almost dead, ladies and gentlemen. Not only does it have almost no value left than what it started with back in 1913, it only has about 1.5 or 2% of its value left, but countries are getting fed up with being told what they have to do. It's just like your neighbor coming over to your house and saying, you're going to do this or I'm going to cut off your water. Let's see how you like that. These countries represent a market of over 3 billion people that no longer need to use the US dollar to trade with one another. All of this is a big problem for the US government, which reaps an enormous amount of power because the US dollar is the world's premier reserve currency. It allows the US to print fake money out of thin air and export it to the rest of the world for real goods and services, a privilege that no other country has. He goes on to say, it also gives Uncle Sam tremendous leverage to pressure people and businesses alike, but only if it is not clumsily used as a blunt instrument that instead fosters the development of alternatives. But that's precisely what is happening. By isolating Russia and its trading partners, the US government incentivizes almost half of mankind to find alternatives to the dollar. In other words, they are undermining their own racket and promoting de-dollarization on an unprecedented scale. When relatively small countries like North Korea, Syria, and Iran are cut off from the dollar, it's one thing. However, it's a different dynamic when the billions of people represented by Russia, China, and their friends stop using the dollar. In order to build back better, meaning that it's not starting from where we've left off. It's starting from zero. In order to build back better, we have to start building back, but from where? You know, this convinces me even more that nefarious reasons are involved behind these sanctions and behind this war. And I believe that one of those reasons is that we need to lose everything in order for the government to come back and say, hey, we're going to build back better. Just do this because we love you and everything we're doing is for your own good, citizens. And what you have to ask yourself is this: how much does the government really do that's for your own good? Ask yourself that question. You don't have to answer it to me. And I'll go ahead and finish it off with this, ladies and gentlemen. Here it says, those measures will have little effect on Russia's ability to interact with the enormous Asian and Middle Eastern markets, which are less likely to follow unilaterally with U.S. sanctions. In any case, it is clear that the U.S. dollar days of unchallenged dominance are quickly coming to an end, something even the Fed chairman openly admits. Having said that, have a great day. Hope to see you this afternoon. Remember to be good to each other. When good people do good things happen. Remember to reach one, teach one, and repeat. If we all did this, the world would be a better place, and you know that it will be a better place. Many blessings to all of you and your families. I'm Alaska Prepper. I am out. Ladies and gentlemen, I can tell you all day how great I think Nutrient Survival is. However, I found this tool that Nutrient Survival inserted into their webpage that allows you to see for yourself exactly what it is that you are paying for when compared to other popular long-term food storage or survival foods. Now, I'm not picking on Mountain House here, but I wanted to show you real quick. The Nutrient Survival Triple Mac Cheese compared to the Mountain House Creamy Macaroni and Cheese. This is what you're getting, ladies and gentlemen. This is why I think Nutrient Survival, not think, but know, is the most nutrient-dense survival food or even food that there is in the market. If you go to this tool and you just go ahead and put your cursor or your mouse over any of these nutritional items here, it tells you and it compares what it is that it has along with what Mountain House has. So, for example, if I go to protein, it shows that a serving of Triple Mac cheese has 24% of your daily value of protein, whereas in Mountain House, it's 15%. Fiber, as you can see, 21% to 0. Omega-3s, 22% to 0. Omega-6, only 7%, but also compared to 0. And if you go ahead and put this over anything that you have any concerns over, for example, sodium, only 11% of the daily value per serving, whereas with Mountain House, you're using up 30% of your daily value. I often get asked, why is Nutrient Survival pricier than other long-term food storage companies? Well, in my opinion, it's not, because you're not getting the same with other long-term food storage companies, as you see here, than you are with Nutrient Survival. Here's their Homestyle Scramble, which is compared to their breakfast skillet. And you can see right here, all you have to do is point. And I can do this all day, ladies and gentlemen. Here's the lasagna with meat sauce. And even though, let me point this out, even though the Mountain House lasagna with meat sauce has actual freeze-dried meat in it, whereas Nutrient Survival is no meat at all, it's vegetarian, look at this, 22% of your daily value of protein, whereas in Mountain House you only get 13%. The Maple Almond Crunch, which is awesome. I like to have it with milk and a little bit of honey, compared to the Oxen Farms Oats and Honey Granola. Same story, ladies and gentlemen. You are getting what you pay for, which is the nutrients that your body needs every day in order to survive and thrive, not just survive. Calories is king. This is what you're getting when you get Oxen Farms Oats and Honey Granola. Now, like I said, I'm not picking on any particular company. I just want people to know that this is the very best nutrient-dense survival food in the market. So feed your freedom with Nutrient Survival.